The library book hit the return slot with a soft thud, and Lily James watched it disappear into the dark chute, feeling oddly reluctant to let it go. She had tucked a note inside the back cover before returning it, a spontaneous moment of connection with a stranger who had scribbled observations in the margins that made her laugh out loud in her tiny apartment. The book was a worn copy of a philosophy text about finding meaning in ordinary moments, and whoever had checked it out before her had a brilliant, witty mind that she found herself wanting to know better. Brandon Thorne sat in the back of his town car, scrolling through emails on his phone as his driver navigated the Manhattan traffic. He had asked his assistant to pick up the library book he had checked out 3 weeks ago, the one he had accidentally left at his office. He liked libraries, the democratic nature of them, the way anyone could access knowledge regardless of their bank account. It was one of the few places where his billions meant nothing. "Mr. Thorne, there was a hold on your book, so I picked it up from the return slot before they could shelve it again," his assistant Marcus said from the front seat, passing the philosophy book back to him. Brandon took it, running his hand over the familiar cover. He had enjoyed writing in the margins, something his tutors had scolded him for as a child, but that he still did as an act of small rebellion. He flipped through the pages absently, and a piece of paper fluttered out onto his lap. The note was written on lined paper torn from a notebook, the edges slightly ragged. The handwriting was feminine, looping but somehow confident. To the person who wrote in the margins, "Your observations about finding joy in waiting for coffee made me laugh so hard I snorted wine through my nose. I was having the worst day, convinced I had made every wrong choice in my life, and your note about how we are all just sophisticated apes trying to figure out the coffee machine reminded me not to take everything so seriously. Thank you for that. I hope you are having a good life, wherever you are. I hope you are finding your ordinary moments meaningful. Signed, someone who needed your words today." Brandon read the note 3 times. His chest felt strange, warm and tight at the same time. He had written those marginal notes 6 months ago, during a particularly difficult board meeting, where he had been questioning everything about the manufacturing empire his family had built. He had checked the book out during lunch, sat in a small park, and written his thoughts about the absurdity and beauty of human existence while watching people struggle with a complicated coffee cart. "Marcus, who returned this book?" "I don't know, sir. It was in the return slot." "Is something wrong?" "No," Brandon said slowly. "Something might actually be very right." Lily walked home from the library, her bag full of new books, trying not to think about the note she had left. It was impulsive and probably stupid. The person who had written those marginal notes likely checked that book out months ago and would never see her message. Even if they did check it out again, what were the chances they would find her note before the library processed the return? She climbed the 4 flights to her small apartment in Brooklyn, letting herself into the cramped space that cost too much but was hers. At 26, she was working as a physical therapist at a rehabilitation center, helping people recover from injuries and surgeries. It was rewarding work, but the student loans were crushing, and some days she felt like she was running in place. The marginal notes in that philosophy book had genuinely lifted her spirits during a week when 3 of her patients had regressed. Her landlord had raised her rent, and her mother had called to ask when she was going to find a nice man and settle down. The anonymous writer's observations had been funny and profound, the kind of thoughts she wished she could discuss with someone over coffee. Brandon Thorne did something he had never done before. He called the library directly. "Manhattan Central Library, how may I help you?" "Hello, I checked out a book 3 weeks ago and someone returned it with a note inside. I would like to contact the person who left the note. There was a pause. Sir, I am sorry, but we cannot give out patron information, privacy policies. Of course, Brandon said. I understand. Is there any way you could contact them on my behalf? We don't have a system for that. But if you would like to check the book out again and leave your own note, perhaps they will check it out again in the future. It was a long shot, a ridiculous long shot, but Brandon found himself agreeing. He had built a manufacturing empire worth $3 billion by taking calculated risks. This felt like a different kind of gamble entirely. Please put it back on the shelf. I will come by tomorrow to check it out again. Lily worked a double shift the next day, covering for a colleague who called in sick. By the time she got home, her feet ached and her back was sore from helping a 200-pound man practice walking with a new hip. She collapsed on her sofa, too tired to even heat up the leftover pasta in her refrigerator. Her phone buzzed with a text from her best friend Sarah. Coffee tomorrow morning before your shift. I have news. Lily texted back a yes and fell asleep in her scrubs, her books from the library still unread on her coffee table. Brandon walked into the Manhattan Central Library at opening time, feeling oddly nervous. He was wearing jeans and a plain black sweater. No suit, no driver, no assistant. He wanted to be anonymous here, just another person looking for a book. The philosophy section was on the third floor. He found the book easily, its worn spine familiar now. He checked it out using his library card, a card he had gotten when he first moved to New York at 18. Desperate to escape his family's expectations and figure out who he was beyond the Thorne name. Sitting at one of the library tables, he opened to a blank page near the back and began to write. To the person who left the note, your words meant more to me than you could know. I wrote those marginal notes during a time when I was questioning everything about my path in life. Knowing that they helped someone else makes those difficult moments feel worthwhile. I find myself wanting to know more about you. What were the wrong choices you thought you had made? Did things get better after your worst day? I am leaving my email address below. If you check this book out again and feel inclined to reach out, I would like to continue this conversation. Yours, a fellow sophisticated ape. He wrote his personal email address, not his work one, and checked the book back in at the front desk. That was quick, the librarian said with a smile. I just needed to add something, Brandon replied. Lily met Sarah at their usual coffee shop, a tiny place in Brooklyn that made the best lattes she had ever tasted. So what is the news? Lily asked, wrapping her hands around her warm mug. Daniel proposed, Sarah said, her face glowing as she held out her hand to show a simple, elegant ring. Oh my God! Lily jumped up and hugged her friend, genuinely happy despite the small twist in her chest. Sarah and Daniel had been dating for 3 years and they were perfect together. I am so happy for you. You will be my maid of honor, obviously. Obviously, Lily agreed, laughing. They spent an hour discussing wedding plans, and by the time Lily left for work, her mood had lifted considerably. She loved seeing people she cared about happy, even if her own romantic life was non-existent. On her lunch break, she found herself thinking about the note she had left in that library book. It had been a moment of connection with a stranger, brief but real. She wondered if the person had ever seen it. Brandon spent the next week checking the library's online catalog obsessively. The philosophy book was still checked in, sitting on the shelf. No one had taken it out. He tried to focus on work, on the quarterly reports and the new sustainable manufacturing initiative he was spearheading, but his mind kept drifting back to that note. You have been distracted, his sister Beatrice said during a family dinner at his penthouse. What is going on? Nothing, Brandon said, which was technically true. Nothing was going on. That was the problem. You never could lie to me, Beatrice said. She was 2 years younger than his 31 years with the same dark hair and sharp features. Tell me. So he did. He told her about the marginal notes, the returned book, the note from a stranger, his reply. Beatrice listened, her expression shifting from amusement to something softer. You really want to meet this person? It is ridiculous. I don't even know if they are a woman or a man. I don't know anything except that their words resonated with me. Then make it happen. You are Brandon Thorne. You built a company from near bankruptcy to $3 billion. You can figure out how to find one library patron without being creepy or violating privacy laws, Brandon pointed out. Challenge accepted, Beatrice said with a grin. Lily had a patient who reminded her of the marginal notes. Mr. Patterson was 73, recovering from a stroke, and he had the driest sense of humor she had ever encountered. During their session, he made a joke about being a sophisticated ape learning to use his arm again, and Lily froze. Where did you hear that phrase? She asked. What phrase, dear, sophisticated ape? Oh, it is just something my grandson says. Why? No reason, Lily said, but her mind was racing. She had been thinking about that library book all week. What if the person had checked it out again? What if they had seen her note? After work, instead of going home, she took the subway into Manhattan. The library was open until 8 on weekdays. She could check if the book was still there. The philosophy section was quiet, just one older man reading in the corner. Lily scanned the shelves, her heart beating faster than it should. There it was, the worn spine, the familiar title. She pulled it off the shelf and flipped to the back, to where she had tucked her note. Her note was gone, but there was new handwriting on a blank page near the back cover. Her breath caught as she read the words, the reply from the person whose thoughts had meant so much to her, an email address. They had left an email address. Lily stood in the aisle for a long moment, the book clutched in her hands. This was crazy. This person could be anyone. But something in her chest was pulling her forward, telling her this mattered. She checked the book out and took it home. Brandon was in a late meeting when his phone buzzed with an email notification. He normally had his phone on silent during meetings, but he had been waiting for this email, hoping for it, for 2 weeks. The subject line was simple: from the library book. He excused himself from the meeting, ignoring the surprised looks from his executives, and stepped into his private office. His hands were actually shaking as he opened the email. I don't usually do things like this. I am a fairly cautious person, despite what my student loans might suggest. But your marginal notes made me laugh during a week when I felt like I was drowning. And your reply made me feel like maybe the universe isn't completely random and meaningless. The wrong choices I mentioned were mostly about career and money. I am a physical therapist, which I love, but the debt is crushing, and sometimes I wonder if I should have chosen something more practical. But then I help someone walk again, or reduce their pain, and I remember why I made this choice. Things did get better after that worst day. Small improvements, but they counted. I would like to continue this conversation too if you are still interested. What were you questioning about your path, Lily? Lily. Her name was Lily. Brandon sat at his desk and typed a reply, then deleted it, then typed it again. He wanted to get this right. Lily, I am very interested in continuing this conversation. I was questioning whether the work I do matters. I run a manufacturing company, and sometimes it feels like I am just moving money around and making rich people richer. I have been trying to change that, to make the company more sustainable and ethical, but progress is slow. Your work sounds incredible. Helping people walk again is not nothing. That is everything. I would like to know more about you if you are willing to share. What made you want to become a physical therapist? Brandon. He hit send before he could overthink it. Lily checked her email obsessively for the next hour, and when his reply came through, she read it 3 times. A manufacturing company. That could mean anything from a small factory to a major corporation. She found herself curious about what kind of person ended up running a manufacturing company, but spent time reading philosophy books and writing thoughtful marginal notes. She wrote back, telling him about how her grandmother had a stroke when Lily was in college, and how the physical therapist who worked with her had been so patient and kind that it inspired Lily to change her major from business to physical therapy. She asked him about his company, about what he manufactured. Brandon replied within minutes, telling her they made industrial equipment and components, but that he was working on transitioning to more sustainable materials and practices. He told her about the resistance he faced from the board, from his own family. They emailed back and forth for 2 hours, messages getting longer and more personal. Brandon told her things he had never told anyone, about the pressure of the family name, about feeling trapped by expectations. Lily told him about her student loans, her tiny apartment, her fear that she was never going to get ahead financially despite loving her work. "We should meet," Brandon wrote finally. "I know this is unconventional, but I feel like I have known you for longer than a few emails. Coffee." Lily stared at the message, her heart racing. This was the moment where she could back out, keep this as a safe pen-pal situation, or she could take a risk. Coffee sounds good. When? They agreed to meet on Saturday morning at a coffee shop in Manhattan, neutral territory. Brandon suggested a place near Central Park, and Lily agreed. She spent the rest of the week in a state of nervous excitement. Sarah noticed immediately. "You have been smiling at your phone for 3 days. What is going on?" Lily explained the whole story, from the marginal notes to the emails. "This is either the most romantic thing I have ever heard or you are about to be murdered," Sarah said. "I am coming with you." "You are not coming with me." "Fine, but you are sharing your location with me and you are texting me every 30 minutes. Deal." Saturday morning arrived cold and clear. Lily changed her outfit 4 times before settling on jeans, boots, and a soft blue sweater that Sarah said made her eyes look amazing. She wore her dark hair down, minimal makeup, her usual style. The coffee shop was crowded when she arrived at 10, and her palms were sweating despite the cold. She had no idea what Brandon looked like. They had not exchanged photos, which seemed insane now that she was actually here. "Lily," she turned and her breath caught. The man standing behind her was tall, probably 6'2", with dark hair that was slightly messy in a way that looked intentional. He had strong features, the kind of face that would photograph well, and dark eyes that were currently looking at her with an expression of wonder. He was also wearing an expensive watch and a coat that she recognized as designer even though she could never afford it. This was not a guy who ran a small factory. "Brandon," she managed to say. "Yes," he smiled, and it transformed his entire face. "You are even more beautiful than I imagined." She felt herself blush. "I was just thinking the same thing about you." "Well, handsome, not beautiful," he laughed, a genuine sound that made her relax slightly. "Should we get coffee?" They ordered drinks and found a small table by the window. For a moment, they just looked at each other, the reality of the situation settling in. "This is surreal," Lily said. "A few weeks ago I was reading your thoughts in a library book, and now you are sitting across from me." "I have been checking the library catalog every day waiting for someone to check that book out again," Brandon admitted. "My sister said I was obsessed." "Your sister might have been right," Lily said, smiling. "But I checked it every day at work too, so I can't judge." They talked for 2 hours, the coffee shop crowd changing around them. Brandon told her more about his company, and Lily realized with a jolt that he was talking about Thorne Manufacturing, a name she recognized from news articles. Thorne Manufacturing was huge, worth billions. "Wait," she said, interrupting his story about a board meeting. "Thorne Manufacturing. As in, you are Brandon Thorne, the Brandon Thorne." He looked uncomfortable. "I wanted to tell you before we met, but I didn't know how. People treat me differently when they know about the money." "How much differently?" Lily asked, her mind reeling. "Very differently. Suddenly I am not just a person, I am a bank account or a connection or a name." Lily sat back in her chair, processing. The man sitting across from her was a billionaire, an actual billionaire. And she was drowning in student loan debt and living in a 400-square-foot apartment. "This is a lot," she said honestly. "I know. If you want to leave, I understand." But Lily thought about the marginal notes, about the emails, about the person she had come to know through words before meeting him. That person was real, regardless of his bank account. "I don't want to leave," she said, "but I need you to know that this is intimidating. We are from very different worlds." "Are we, though?" Brandon asked. "You spend your days helping people recover from injuries. I spend my days trying to make my company less damaging to the environment. We both care about making things better. The difference is just numbers in a bank account." "Those numbers matter, though," Lily pointed out. "They change what is possible, what is available." "You are right," Brandon said. "I have privilege, a lot of it, but I am still just a person who wrote notes in library books and hoped someone would understand." Lily looked at him, at the genuine expression on his face, and made a decision. "Tell me more about the sustainable manufacturing. What are you trying to change?" His face lit up, and for the next hour he explained his vision for Thorne Manufacturing, the resistance he faced, the slow progress. Lily found herself fascinated by the way he talked about environmental responsibility and worker rights with the same passion she felt about patient care. "We should walk," Brandon said eventually. "I have been sitting still too long." They walked through Central Park, the late morning sun filtering through bare branches. It was cold enough that their breath formed clouds, and Lily tucked her hands into her pockets. "Are you cold?" Brandon asked. "A little," she admitted. Without asking, he took off his scarf and wrapped it around her neck. It was warm and smelled like expensive cologne, and the gesture made her heart beat faster. "Thank you. My mother raised me to be a gentleman," he said. "Well, she tried. I was a stubborn kid." "Tell me about your family," Lily said. Brandon talked about his parents, both deceased now. His father 3 years ago and his mother when Brandon was in college. He talked about his sister Beatrice, who ran the charitable foundation the family had started. He talked about the pressure of the Thorne name, the expectations that came with billions of dollars. "It sounds lonely," Lily said. "It can be," Brandon admitted. "People want things from me. They want money or connections or the Thorne name attached to their project. It is hard to know who genuinely wants to know me as a person." "Is that why you didn't tell me who you were in the emails?" "Partly. But also because I liked being just Brandon, a person who reads philosophy books and writes in the margins. Not Brandon Thorne, CEO." They walked until they were both starving, and then Brandon suggested lunch. He took her to a small Italian place that she never would have found on her own, tucked away on a side street. The food was incredible, and they talked until the restaurant started filling with the dinner crowd. "I should probably get home," Lily said reluctantly. "I have work tomorrow." "Can I see you again?" Brandon asked. "Soon." "Yes," Lily said. "I would really like that." Brandon insisted on driving her home, and Lily agreed, curious to see what a billionaire drove. She was expecting something flashy, but he led her to a fairly normal black sedan. "I have a town car for work," he explained, seeing her expression. "But I like to drive myself when I can. It feels more normal." He drove her to Brooklyn, and Lily found herself giving him directions to her building with some embarrassment. It was not a bad neighborhood, but it was a far cry from wherever he lived. "This is me," she said as he pulled up to the curb. "It looks nice." "It is small and expensive and the heat barely works, but it is mine," Lily said. Brandon turned to look at her, his expression serious. "Lily, I had an amazing time today. I haven't felt this comfortable with someone in a very long time." "Me either," she admitted. "Can I take you to dinner tomorrow night? I have a late shift. I won't be off until 8. Then I will pick you up at 8:30. We can get a late dinner." Lily agreed, and Brandon walked her to her building door. For a moment they stood there, the city sounds around them, and Lily wondered if he would kiss her. But instead he took her hand and squeezed it gently. "I will see you tomorrow," he said. "Tomorrow," she echoed. She watched him walk back to his car, and then she practically floated up the 4 flights to her apartment. Sarah called immediately. "Tell me everything." Lily told her, from the coffee shop to Central Park to the Italian restaurant. "He is Brandon Thorne," Sarah said flatly. "The Brandon Thorne. Lily, do you understand how insane this is?" "Yes," Lily said. "Trust me, I know." "What are you going to do?" "I am going to see him again tomorrow." "Sarah, he is not what I expected. He is just a person, a really kind, thoughtful person who happens to have a lot of money." "Okay," Sarah said slowly. "Just be careful, this is moving fast." "I know," Lily said, "but it feels right." Brandon drove home to his penthouse in Manhattan, his mind full of Lily. She was everything he had hoped and more. Smart, funny, kind, with an honesty that he found refreshing. She had not fawned over his money or his name. If anything, it had made her more cautious. He wanted to see her again immediately. He wanted to talk to her for hours, learn everything about her. Beatrice was waiting in his penthouse when he arrived, drinking wine on his couch. "You gave your doorman permission to let me in," she said, seeing his expression. "So don't give me that look. Tell me about the library mystery woman." Brandon poured himself a drink and told her everything. Beatrice listened, her expression shifting from amused to genuinely happy. "You really like her," she said. "I really do." "Then what is the problem?" "The money," Brandon said. "She has student loans and lives in a tiny apartment and works double shifts. I live in a penthouse and have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. That is going to be complicated." "Only if you let it be," Beatrice said. "Look, yes, you have money, but you also have integrity and kindness, and you actually care about making the world better. Don't let the money define you." "Easy for you to say," Brandon muttered. "Is it, though?" "I deal with the same thing running the foundation. People see dollar signs, not people. But Lily saw you first, before she knew about the money. That matters." Brandon knew his sister was right. He also knew that he was falling for Lily James faster than was probably wise. The next day at work dragged. Lily had 3 difficult patients, including a woman recovering from a car accident who was in constant pain and frustrated with her slow progress. Lily spent extra time with her, working through gentle exercises and talking about realistic goals. "You are so patient," the woman said. "I would have given up on me by now." "That is not how this works," Lily said gently. "We keep going, even when it is hard, especially when it is hard." By the time her shift ended at 8, Lily was exhausted but also buzzing with anticipation. She changed in the staff bathroom, swapping her scrubs for a dress she had brought from home. It was simple, dark green, something she wore to weddings and nice dinners. She reapplied her makeup and brushed her hair, trying to look like she had not just worked a 10-hour shift. Brandon was waiting in the lobby at 8:30 exactly, and the sight of him made her stomach flip. He was wearing dark slacks and a charcoal sweater, dressed up but not overly formal. "You look beautiful," he said. "You look pretty good yourself," Lily replied. He took her to a French restaurant in Midtown, the kind of place with white tablecloths and multiple forks. Lily felt out of her depth for a moment, but Brandon seemed to sense it. "I know this place is a bit much," he said, "but they make the best duck I have ever had, and I wanted to share it with you." The food was incredible, course after course of perfectly prepared dishes. Brandon ordered wine, a bottle that probably cost more than Lily's monthly rent, and they talked about everything and nothing. He asked about her day and actually listened as she described her difficult patient. "You are good at what you do," he said. "I can tell just by the way you talk about it." "I try," Lily said. "What about you? How was your day?" Brandon made a face. "Board meeting. They voted against my proposal for sustainable packaging." Again. "What was the proposal?" He explained the plan to switch to biodegradable materials, the increased cost, the long-term benefits. Lily listened and then asked questions that made him think about the problem differently. "You should present it as a marketing advantage," she said. "Consumers care about this stuff now. You could make it a selling point that Thorne Manufacturing is leading the industry in environmental responsibility." Brandon stared at her. "That is brilliant. Why didn't I think of that?" "Because you are focused on the ethics and the environment, which is admirable. But your board cares about profit. Frame it in terms they understand." They talked strategy for 20 minutes, and Brandon found himself making notes on his phone. Lily's perspective was fresh, uncomplicated by years of corporate thinking. After dinner, they walked along the East River, the city lights reflecting on the water. It was cold and Brandon offered his coat, but Lily refused. "You will freeze," she said. "Then we will just have to walk faster," he replied and took her hand. The feeling of his hand in hers was electric. They walked in comfortable silence for a while, just being together, and Lily felt something shift in her chest. This was becoming real. This was becoming important. "Tell me something you have never told anyone," Brandon said suddenly. Lily thought about it. "Sometimes I am so tired from work that I eat cereal for dinner and fall asleep on my couch in my scrubs. I know I should have a proper meal and a proper bedtime routine, but some days I just can't." "That is not shameful, that is human," Brandon said. "I do the same thing except with takeout and my work clothes." "Your turn," Lily said. "Tell me something you have never told anyone." Brandon was quiet for a long moment. "I didn't want to take over the company. My father pressured me into it. I wanted to be an architect." "An architect? I love buildings, the way they shape how we live. I wanted to design spaces that made people feel good, that were sustainable and beautiful. But my father was dying, and he begged me to take over Thorne Manufacturing to keep the family legacy alive. So I did." "Do you regret it?" "Sometimes," Brandon admitted. "But I am also trying to make it into something I can be proud of. Maybe that is my own form of architecture, rebuilding a company from the inside." Lily squeezed his hand. "I think that is even more impressive than designing buildings." They walked until it was late, and then Brandon drove her home again. This time, when they stood outside her building, he cupped her face in his hands. "I am going to kiss you now," he said. "If that is okay." "More than okay," Lily whispered. His lips were warm despite the cold air, and the kiss was gentle at first, then deeper. Lily felt it all the way to her toes, a warmth that spread through her entire body. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathing hard. "Wow," Lily said. "Yeah," Brandon agreed. "Wow." She went upstairs in a daze and fell asleep with a smile on her face. They fell into a pattern over the next few weeks. Brandon would pick her up after work, and they would have dinner or walk or just sit in his car and talk. He never pushed for more than she was ready to give. and Lily appreciated his patience. She was falling for him hard, but she was also scared of the differences between their lives. Brandon invited her to a charity gala that his sister's foundation was hosting. Lily agreed, even though the thought of a fancy event terrified her. "I don't have anything to wear to a gala," she told Sarah. "Then we are going shopping," Sarah declared. They found a dress on sale, a simple black gown that made Lily feel elegant without breaking her budget. Sarah did her hair and makeup, and when Lily looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Brandon picked her up in a town car, and his expression when he saw her made the stress of shopping worth it. "You are stunning," he said. The gala was at a hotel ballroom in Manhattan, full of people in expensive clothes drinking expensive champagne. Lily felt out of place immediately, but Brandon kept his hand on the small of her back, grounding her. "Brandon." A woman approached them, beautiful and polished. "I didn't know you were bringing someone." "Victoria, this is Lily James. Lily Victoria Sinclair." Victoria's eyes swept over Lily with thinly veiled judgment. "Charming." "What do you do, Lily?" "I am a physical therapist," Lily said. "How noble," Victoria said in a tone that suggested it was anything but. Brandon's hand tightened on Lily's back. "Victoria runs a hedge fund. She specializes in hostile takeovers." "Someone has to make the tough decisions," Victoria said sweetly. "Brandon, we should catch up later. I have a proposal I want to discuss with you." She walked away, and Lily let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. "She seems nice," she said sarcastically. Brandon laughed. "Victoria is a shark. She has been trying to get me to sell parts of the company for years." "Don't let her get to you." But the interaction set the tone for the evening. Several people approached Brandon, all of them sizing up Lily with varying degrees of interest or dismissal. She was introduced as his girlfriend, which made her heart race even as she worried she didn't belong in this world. Beatrice saved her. Brandon's sister appeared at her elbow during dinner and immediately began talking to Lily like they were old friends. "Ignore the sharks," Beatrice said cheerfully. "They smell blood in the water whenever Brandon shows interest in someone. You are the first person he has brought to one of these events in 5 years." "Really?" Lily asked. "Really. He must really like you." After dinner, there was dancing. Brandon led Lily onto the floor and she went stiffly, worried about embarrassing him. "I am not a great dancer," she warned. "Neither am I," Brandon said. "We will figure it out together." He held her close and they swayed to the music. Lily gradually relaxed into him, and by the end of the song she was smiling. "See," Brandon murmured into her ear. "Not so bad." They stayed until late and then Brandon took her home. In the car, Lily was quiet. "What are you thinking?" Brandon asked. "That your world is very different from mine," Lily said honestly. "Does that bother you?" "I don't know. Maybe. Those people tonight, they looked at me like I didn't belong." Brandon pulled the car over and turned to face her. "Lily, those people don't matter. Their opinions don't matter. What matters is how we feel about each other." "And how do you feel?" Lily asked. "I am falling in love with you," Brandon said simply. "I have been since I read your note in that library book." Lily's breath caught. It was too soon, too fast, but it was also true. She felt it too. "I am falling in love with you too," she said, "and that terrifies me." "Why?" "Because what if this doesn't work? What if the differences between our lives become too much?" Brandon took her hand. "Then we figure it out, together. Lily, I don't have all the answers. But I know that what I feel for you is real. The rest we can work through." Lily looked at him, at his honest expression, and felt something settle in her chest. He was right. They would figure it out. "Okay," she said. "Together." Brandon kissed her, and this time when he pulled away, they were both smiling. The weeks turned into months. Lily met Brandon's sister properly, and they became friends. Beatrice was warm and funny, with none of the judgment that the charity gala crowd had shown. She invited Lily to lunch and asked about her work with genuine interest. "I am so glad Brandon found you," Beatrice said over salads. "He has been different since he met you, happier." "I am happy too," Lily admitted. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is real." "Believe it," Beatrice said. "My brother doesn't do anything halfway. If he is with you, he is all in." Brandon proved that over and over. He showed up at her apartment with dinner when she worked late shifts. He remembered small details she mentioned in passing. He asked about her patients and listened to her stories with genuine interest. For her birthday, he took her to a small restaurant in Brooklyn that she had mentioned once in passing, months ago. He didn't make a big show of it, just the two of them and a chocolate cake he had ordered because he knew it was her favorite. "You remembered," Lily said, touched. "Of course I remembered," Brandon replied. "I remember everything you tell me." Lily also saw the other side of his life. She attended board meetings when he asked her to, giving him feedback on presentations. She watched him navigate the complicated politics of running a billion-dollar company with grace and determination. His proposal for sustainable packaging eventually passed, partly because he used the marketing angle she had suggested. "I couldn't have done this without you," he told her after the board meeting. "Yes, you could have," Lily said, "but I am glad I could help." The issue of money came up periodically. Brandon wanted to help with her student loans and Lily refused. "I need to do this myself," she said firmly, "but I could pay them off completely and you wouldn't have to worry about it anymore." "Brandon, I appreciate the offer, but my financial situation is my responsibility. I don't want to be the kind of person who is with you because of your money." "I don't think that about you," Brandon protested. "I know you don't, but I need to know that about myself." Brandon accepted it, though Lily could tell it frustrated him. He was a problem solver and he wanted to solve this for her. They compromised in small ways. Brandon paid for dinners and events, and Lily cooked for him at his place, insisting on buying the groceries herself. It was a balance, not perfect but workable. 6 months into their relationship, Brandon asked Lily to move in with him. They were at his penthouse, cooking dinner together. Brandon was surprisingly good in the kitchen, and they had developed a rhythm of working together. "You spend half your time here anyway," Brandon said casually, chopping vegetables. "And your apartment is expensive for how small it is. You could save money if you lived here." Lily paused in stirring the sauce. "Brandon, that is a big step. I know. But I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to come home to you every night. I love you, Lily. Move in with me." Lily set down the spoon and turned to face him. "I love you too, but I need to know this isn't about you trying to fix my financial situation." "It is not," Brandon said. "Okay, maybe 5% is about wanting to make your life easier, but 95% is because I want to build a life with you." "What about the other 5%?" Lily asked, smiling. "That is reserved for selfish reasons, like having better access to your cooking and seeing you first thing in the morning." Lily laughed, and then she kissed him. "Okay, yes, I will move in with you." Moving into Brandon's penthouse was surreal. Lily donated most of her furniture to charity, keeping only the things that had sentimental value. Brandon cleared out closets and drawers, giving her space that felt like hers. "This is your home now, too," he said. "Change anything you want, decorate however you like. I want you to feel comfortable here." Lily did make changes, small ones. She added plants to the windowsills and colorful throws to the modern furniture. She put up photos of her family and friends. Slowly, the penthouse began to feel like home. Sarah visited and could barely contain her amazement. "This is insane. You have a doorman and a view of Central Park. Lily, your life is like a movie." "It is still just life," Lily said. I still go to work every day, I still have student loans. The only difference is where I sleep at night. And that you are dating a billionaire, Sarah pointed out. Yes, Lily agreed. That too. Work remained Lily's anchor. No matter how much her personal life changed, her job stayed the same. She still helped patients recover, still worked long shifts, still dealt with the challenges of the healthcare system. Brandon respected that, never asking her to cut back or quit even though she knew he could easily support her. Your work matters, he said when she mentioned feeling guilty about leaving him alone while she worked doubles. I knew who you were when I fell in love with you. I would never ask you to change that. A year into their relationship, Brandon proposed. It was not a grand public gesture. Instead, he proposed at the library where their story had begun. They had gone back to return a book, something they did together now. Brandon led her to the philosophy section, to the shelf where that first book had sat. This is where everything changed for me, he said. I checked out a book and wrote some notes, never imagining someone would read them and understand, never imagining that person would become the most important part of my life. He got down on one knee and Lily's heart stopped. Lily James, you make me want to be better. You challenge me, support me, and love me for who I am, not what I have. Will you marry me? The ring was beautiful, a simple solitaire that caught the library lights. But Lily was not looking at the ring. She was looking at Brandon, at the man who had written thoughtful notes in book margins, who cared about making his company ethical, who loved her completely. Yes, she said. 1,000 times yes. They kissed in the philosophy section of the Manhattan Central Library, and the librarian who witnessed it smiled and went back to shelving books. Planning the wedding was an adventure. Lily wanted something simple and meaningful, while Brandon's family obligations required inviting hundreds of business associates and society figures. They compromised with 2 events. A large formal wedding for family, friends, and business contacts, and a smaller private ceremony the day before with just their closest people. The private ceremony was Lily's favorite. It was held in a small garden in Brooklyn, with only 20 guests. Beatrice was the officiant, having gotten ordained online. Sarah was the maid of honor, and Brandon's best friend Marcus was the best man. Lily wore a simple white dress, and Brandon wore a gray suit. They exchanged vows they had written themselves, promising to support each other, challenge each other, and love each other through everything life brought. I promise to never stop writing you notes, Brandon said, and everyone laughed because he had started leaving her little messages around the penthouse, on the bathroom mirror, in her coat pockets. I promise to always call you out when you are being too hard on yourself, Lily said, and to remind you that your work matters. They kissed as husband and wife, and their small group of loved ones cheered. The formal wedding the next day was beautiful but exhausting. There were 400 guests, a 6-course meal, and a band that played until midnight. Lily smiled through it all, but she was grateful when they finally escaped to a hotel suite. That was a lot, she said, collapsing on the bed still in her wedding dress. It was, Brandon agreed, loosening his tie. But tomorrow we leave for our honeymoon, and it will be just us for 2 weeks. They honeymooned in Italy, staying in a small villa in Tuscany. It was private and romantic, and they spent their days exploring villages, eating incredible food, and just being together. Brandon left his work phone at the villa, trusting his team to handle anything that came up. This is perfect, Lily said one evening as they watched the sunset from their terrace. It really is, Brandon agreed, pulling her close. When they returned to New York, they settled into married life. Lily kept working, now as a senior physical therapist at her clinic. Brandon continued running Thorne Manufacturing, making progress on his sustainability initiatives. They had their first real fight 3 months into the marriage. Brandon had made a large donation to Lily's clinic without telling her, and she was furious. "You can't just throw money at things I care about without discussing it with me," she said. "I was trying to help. Your clinic needs a new therapy pool. Now they can afford one." "That is not the point. The point is you didn't talk to me first. This is a partnership, Brandon. We make decisions together." Brandon was quiet for a moment. "You are right. I am sorry. I am so used to just solving problems with money, I didn't think about how it would make you feel." "I don't want to be your charity project," Lily said more quietly. "I want to be your equal partner." "You are," Brandon said, "and I will do better. I promise." They worked through it, and Brandon did keep his promise. He consulted her on donations and business decisions, valuing her perspective. Lily, in turn, learned to accept help sometimes, to let him support her in ways that didn't diminish her independence. 2 years into their marriage, Lily got a promotion to director of physical therapy at her clinic. It came with a significant raise and more responsibility, and she was thrilled. "I am so proud of you," Brandon said, sweeping her into a hug when she told him. "Thank you for never making me feel like my job was less important than yours," Lily said. "Your job changes individual lives directly. Mine just makes money. If anything, your work is more important." They celebrated with dinner at the small Italian restaurant from their first date, the place that had become their special spot. The question of children came up naturally. They were lying in bed one Saturday morning, lazy and comfortable, when Lily mentioned a patient whose baby had been at the clinic. "You want kids?" she asked. Brandon was quiet for a moment. "I do. Someday, do you?" "I think so. I worry about balancing work and parenting, but yes, I want to be a mother. Then we will figure out the balance, just like we have figured out everything else." They tried for a year before Lily got pregnant. When she saw the positive test, she cried with happiness and fear and overwhelming emotion. Brandon cried too, holding her and whispering about how their lives were about to change. The pregnancy was difficult. Lily had severe morning sickness for the first 4 months, and she had to cut back her hours at work. It frustrated her, being limited by her own body, but Brandon was endlessly supportive. "You are growing a human," he reminded her. "That is more important than anything else right now." They found out they were having a girl, and they spent weekends painting the nursery and arguing good-naturedly about names. "What about Elizabeth?" Brandon suggested. "Too formal. What about Luna? Too celestial. What about Bridget?" They finally agreed on Lily's grandmother's name, Rose. Rose Marie Thorne. Lily went into labor on a Tuesday evening, 3 days after her due date. Brandon drove her to the hospital, holding her hand through contractions and looking terrified. "I am supposed to be the one who is scared," Lily said between contractions. "You are much braver than me," Brandon replied. 17 hours later, Rose Marie Thorne was born, 7 pounds and 3 ounces of perfect baby. Brandon held her and cried openly, and Lily felt her heart expand in ways she hadn't known were possible. "She is beautiful," Brandon whispered. "Just like her mother." "She has your eyes," Lily said, exhausted but happy. They brought Rose home to the penthouse, and their lives transformed. Lily took 4 months of maternity leave, and Brandon cut back his hours to be home more. They were tired and overwhelmed and happier than they had ever been. Beatrice was a devoted aunt, showing up with meals and offering to babysit. Sarah visited weekly, bringing gifts and stories. Lily's mother flew in from Ohio and stayed for 2 weeks, helping with the baby and cooking meals. "You have a good one there," Lily's mother said, watching Brandon change Rose's diaper with practiced efficiency. "He is a real partner." "I know," Lily said. I am lucky. When Lily went back to work, they hired a nanny, a kind woman named Patricia who had raised 3 children of her own. It was hard for Lily to leave Rose, but she also missed her work, missed helping patients. Brandon rearranged his schedule to be home by 6 every evening. Board meetings that ran late were rescheduled, business dinners were declined. His priorities had shifted, and he was unapologetic about it. Family comes first, he told his executives. Everything else is secondary. Rose was 6 months old when Brandon surprised Lily with a gift. It was a small check, enough to pay off her student loans completely. Before you get angry, he said quickly, let me explain. This is not from me. It is from Thorne Manufacturing. We started a new program to provide scholarships and loan assistance to healthcare workers. You qualify. So do 20 other people who work in healthcare and have significant student debt. Lily stared at the check. You started a program. Yes. You inspired it, actually. Healthcare workers are some of the most important people in our society, and many of them are drowning in debt. It seemed like something Thorne Manufacturing should address. Brandon, Lily said, her eyes filling with tears. This is incredible. So you will accept it? Yes, but only if I can help with the program, help choose recipients and make sure it is doing real good. Deal, Brandon said, kissing her. The years passed in a blur of happiness. Rose grew into a curious, energetic toddler. Lily advanced in her career, eventually becoming the head of her clinic's therapy program. Brandon continued transforming Thorne Manufacturing, earning awards for the company's environmental initiatives. When Rose was 3, they got pregnant again, this time with a boy they named James after Lily's father. James was easier as a baby, calmer than his sister, and the family of 4 found their rhythm. They moved to a larger home, a brownstone in Brooklyn with a yard where the kids could play. Brandon still kept the penthouse for late work nights, but the brownstone was their real home, full of toys and laughter and the beautiful chaos of family life. One evening, when Rose was 7 and James was 4, Lily and Brandon sat on their back porch watching the kids play. Rose was teaching James how to kick a soccer ball, patient and encouraging like her mother. "Do you ever think about that library book?" Lily asked. "All the time," Brandon said. "I think about the randomness of it, how we could have easily never met. What if you had not checked that book out? What if I had not left those marginal notes?" "But we did," Lily said. "And look at what we built." Brandon pulled her close. "I would write those notes 1,000 times in 1,000 different books if it meant finding you." "That is very romantic for a billionaire manufacturing CEO," Lily teased. "I am a romantic billionaire manufacturing CEO. Thank you very much." They laughed, and Rose ran over to show them a particularly good kick James had managed. They cheered and applauded, and James beamed with pride. Later that night, after the kids were in bed, Lily found a note tucked into her bedside book. It was written in Brandon's handwriting. "You are my greatest adventure. I love you more every day." She smiled and tucked it away with the others she had saved over the years, dozens of little notes he had left her throughout their marriage. Years later, when Rose was applying to colleges, she asked her parents how they met. "We met through a library book," Lily said. "That is so old-fashioned," Rose said. "Why didn't you just use a dating app?" "Because sometimes the best things in life are unplanned," Brandon said. "Sometimes you write notes in a book, hoping someone will understand, and that someone becomes your entire world." Rose rolled her eyes like only a teenager could, but she was smiling. "You two are so sappy." "We are," Lily agreed, reaching for Brandon's hand. "And we are not sorry about it." Brandon squeezed her hand, that familiar gesture that still made her heart skip after all these years. They had built something real, something lasting. from a few words scribbled in the margins of a philosophy book. Sometimes the most meaningful connections come from the smallest moments, from notes left for strangers who become the love of your life. Lily and Brandon knew that better than anyone. Their story had started in a library, with words on a page and hope in their hearts. It continued in a life full of love, challenge, joy, and partnership. And it would go on in their children, in the programs they built, in the lives they touched. All because someone returned a library book, and someone else found a note inside before they got home.